Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rachel Siegel, the Director of Strategic Programs at Illuminate. Welcome to our Crown Jewel Conversation series. Thank you for joining us today from all over the world. Our hearts continue to be heavy as the war in Israel continues. It is also personal for us at Illuminate, as 25% of the women we support in our network are Jewish women executives in Israel and currently on the front lines supporting their constituents as well as being women living and working there. Illuminate is a catalyst for gender justice and social innovation. We invest in the leadership of Jewish women social entrepreneurs who are devoting their lives to tackling society's most pressing issues affecting women and other marginalized communities throughout the United States, Israel, and around the globe. Each year, we select 10 extraordinary Jewish women leaders. We call them Jewels, Jewish entrepreneurial women executive leaders, to take part in the collective. This cohort-based leadership advancement program fosters connections, encourages partnerships, provides resources, and a curriculum tailored to meet their needs. This enables the leaders to maximize their impact. Our global network of changemakers is now 50 women strong. Illuminate is also dedicated to educating women philanthropists, as we are today, about emerging social issues and making impactful investments to support Jewish leaders working for social change. Philanthropists of all financial capacities are welcome to participate, no matter where they are physically located. We believe that the integration of activism and philanthropy is essential to creating systemic change. When you support Illuminate, you not only support 50 organizations run by phenomenal women, you are part of a movement. Together, we are advancing a deeply feminist response to global social challenges and creating a bright future. Our conversation today will allow you to get to know one of the incredible women in this movement. Rabba Sara Hurwitz is the co-founder and president of Maharat and is a member of the rabbinic staff of the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale. She graduated from Barnard College at Columbia University, then completed Drisha's Scholars Circle program. After an additional 5 years of study under the auspices of Rabbi Avi Weiss, in 2009 was ordained by Rabbi Weiss and Rabbi Daniel Sperber, becoming the first Orthodox woman to publicly be ordained. Shortly thereafter, she founded Yeshivat Maharat, a rabbinical school that trains and ordains women across the world to serve as spiritual leaders. Rabba Sara has received numerous awards and was a member of the inaugural class of Wexner Foundation Field Fellows. She has lectured at many organizations and communities across the country. Rabba Sara was named Forward 50 Most Influential Jewish Leaders and Newsweek's 50 Most Influential Rabbis. Please write any questions you have in the chat, and we will do our best to incorporate them if time allows. To begin the conversation, I'm pleased to introduce our immediate past president of Illuminate, Rachel Weinstein.
Thank you, Rachel. And hello, Rabba Sara. I know we've known each other for some time, and I'm so thrilled to be having this conversation with you. What an incredible list of credentials. You are such a trailblazer, and we're so excited to hear just your thoughts today, a little bit more about your story, how this all began, and, what your thoughts are on the rabbinic movement where we are today. So thank you so much. I'd love to, start out really with your background and your own personal story and how that eventually led to the origin of Maharat.
Thanks, Rachel. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I recognize many names and people here, so I want to also say hello to everybody else. And of course, so grateful to Illuminate and to actually the long history that I've had with many of you over the trajectory of my career and Maharat. So let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to be where I am today. I I like to begin my story in South Africa, where I was born and raised. And my parents made the decision to leave apartheid South Africa when I was 12. I have maybe an accent, maybe not, but I, left at an age where it could have gone either way. We moved to Boca Raton, Florida, but my parents took us out of South Africa, I think because they wanted to offer my sister and I a life where we could center tolerance for all people, for equality and equity. And that sent me a very strong message at a very young age. I didn't know that it would translate into being an Orthodox female rabbi because there was no model of what that looked like, and I didn't know that that was even a path that I could find myself on. But I was committed to Jewish community and to being part of the community. I found myself in the Orthodox community because I was 12 and looking for people who were like-minded, and South Africans tend to be very traditional. Um, and I really fell in love with shul and with the liturgy and the sense of joy that I experienced even as a young kid. Um, when I was on my way to college, my parents wanted me to take this vocational test to see what my skill set was best suited, and the results said I was going to be clergy, and we all laughed at that because what was a young woman going to do with that information? And so I put it aside. I pursued other things in college at Barnard. I had spent a gap year in Israel, trying to hone a little bit of my skills in learning and Torah. But it wasn't until I graduated college and realized that my destiny was to contribute to building a Jewish community that I wanted to be part of. And so I spent some time learning Torah and getting more of a foundation of skills. And when I finished that phase, I started working with Rabbi Weiss at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale just as a congregational intern. Nobody knew what I was interning for, exactly what the job was, but I was working 10 hours a week in a synagogue, beginning to build relationships with people and understand what the job of clergy or rabbi was. And after being there for a year, it was a great fit. And Rabbi Weiss and I started dreaming together, what would it look like to be a full-time member of the rabbinic staff? It hadn't really happened before. We didn't know if it would be accepted, if people would come to me and see me as their rabbi. I think most people, even when they imagine the word Jew, apparently there was a research that was just done on this that people were asked to depict a picture of a Jew, and most people, like 95% of people, drew a man, a man with a beard even. So, I certainly found it hard to imagine myself in that position of authority. But one thing we knew for certain was that I would need to spend even more time learning. And so as you mentioned, I started learning with a learning partner and under the auspices of Rabbi Weiss. And after 5 years of studying the minutiae of Jewish law, and while I was working already as a rabbi at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, I was ordained. And I say it like it was no big deal, but the truth is, because I'd been part of the HIR for a while, I think that the community which I was part of, I think generally understood and accepted who I was. And we decided to have a public ceremony where I would officially become ordained. And at that ceremony, people came to me and said, okay, how do I sign up? How do I do this? And I knew that it was so hard for me to carve out this pathway, that I wanted an opportunity for other Orthodox women to have a credentialed, clear pathway where they could pursue and get the skill set necessary to become rabbinic leaders. And so Rabbi Weiss and I just announced the opening of Yeshivat Maharat. We received many applications. We started in 2009, which is also the same year I was ordained, September 2009, with just 3 students. And now we're in our 15th year, and we have 64 women out in the field serving in rabbinic positions, both inside the Orthodox community and for the general community in Hillels and schools, in Jewish organizations. And in a year and a half, meaning in June, not this June, next June, we'll have 100 women out in the field. So it's very exciting.
That's incredible. I mean, so inspiring. And I think one of the things that I love so much about each and every one of you who's in our collective is like you imagine things that don't exist. Like you imagine things that, most of us can only imagine what we know. And like you dare to sort of imagine something that isn't even there. And by doing so, you change, whole communities and you change the world. And to think that there are going to now be 100 ordained Orthodox rabbis is incredible. So mazel tov to you. Can you speak a little bit specifically about the work of Maharat and how it works and how women come in and what's the learning and how long it takes and all those kinds of things?
Sure. Our main mission is to recruit, train, and ordain women and prepare them for 21st century Jewry. And we do so in a full-time program where we help our students get the skills of learning Talmud, Jewish law, as well as becoming really good pastoral leaders, having the sensitivity and emotional intelligence to meet people where they are. We teach leadership training, leadership skills. Every student has to have an internship where they are getting hands-on opportunity to explore what the work looks like in the field. It's a 4-year program, but we also offer the ability for students to be part-time. We don't charge tuition, and we give a stipend to help our students, live while they're full-time students. But we know that even our small stipend is not enough to really sustain many people. And so we've also made it possible for our students to work part-time and have a trajectory where they can take 6 years to do the program. We also have an executive track where women who have been in the field for a long time but didn't have the imprimatur of ordination, we wanted an accelerated track to help them get their ordination and that skill set. And we also just recently partnered with an institution in Israel called Eina Natziv, where we are giving ordination to women in Israel as well. But one thing that's really awesome about Maharat is that we're global, which is something unexpected. At first we were very focused on educating people in New York, but what we discovered is that women can't just pick up their lives and move their families to New York. And so we before people knew about Zoom, we had Zoom opportunities even from the first class. And now we have students who are Zooming in from South Africa. I actually see one of our Beit Midrash students here, Alana, who I think is Zooming in from Durban, South Africa. We have students in Switzerland, in Israel, of course, in London, in France, and it's exciting to be able to stretch our impact and to create a global sense of community around the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Just a couple follow-up questions from what you shared. Where are you recruiting from? How do you recruit the women in your academy?
Yeah, we look, I think I don't know if people have been reading up on rabbinic schools in general, but there has definitely been a downward trend to people wanting to enter the rabbinate because it's a really hard job. It takes a lot of energy and effort. You have to really love the people, the Jewish people, and love learning and love God, and sometimes that's difficult. Community doesn't always treat their rabbis so well. That is not the experience of Maharat. In other words, our admissions is still on the upwards trajectory, but I'm very attuned to these trends because I think I am answering your question because I think it goes to trying to tap people very early on and to help them envision what it looks like to be a a rabbi. And, you know, I think more and more the prestige of a job is often found outside of a rabbinic profession. You know, people want to be lawyers and doctors or to serve in some other way. I think I was talking to you once about how it used to be that when people wanted to do service, they did so through social work, but then social work became like very feminized, and so then people try to figure out how to give back by getting high-powered jobs, focusing on being able to make money and then give back to the Jewish community monetarily. And I think now there's like a swing back to wanting to service, to do service and to give back. But we want to tap people very early on, and so we have a bat mitzvah program where we invite bat mitzvah girls to come in and show them what like leadership might look like. We have a post high school program in Israel where we bring people together. We have a college learning program, and then of course we're also pulling from you know, people who are in the educators track or in getting PhDs in Jewish communal work or Jewish history. And I think that again, it's because we're the only ordination opportunity in America. There are other programs in Israel. People find their way to us, and so our ability to attract students is still pretty good. And I would say our students do range from first career, like right out of college, to women who are in their second or third careers.
Amazing. And you also said that you provide free tuition. In fact, you provide a stipend. How is that possible? Where is your funding coming from so that you're able to do that?
I work very hard at that. It's something I never understood or knew that my rabbinic job would include fundraising. You know, I didn't get any training, but I learned very fast on the job. And so we get 100% of our money is through fundraising. I'm so grateful to our angel donors at the beginning who were able to dream with us and have really grown with us over the years. My first budget was $50,000. We're now at a $4 million budget. And we get about a third of our funds from foundation, a third from our multi-year donors who allow us to dream and to, you know, invest in us in multi-years. And then of course our grassroots donors who find us because they're celebrating their family members' ordination ceremony, or just, you know, people who want to invest in the dream of the fact that Orthodox women should be part of the landscape and contribute to our communal conversations.
Amazing, amazing. I want to zoom out a little bit and talk to you more generally about how you see the role of a rabbi, and especially rabbis that maybe don't have specific congregations. And I'm also sort of curious, you know, how, if at all, has that role changed since October 7th?
Okay, so the job of a rabbi has definitely become more intense. I'll just say personally that like everybody here, I was stunned and just walked around like a zombie, I think, for the first few days after October 7th. And I you know, we just there were no words. We didn't know what to do. But I think that many of us like jumped in super fast. And I think the job is to support our community wherever they are. For me, I have students and community members in Israel. So one of the first things that I did was to go to Israel just 2 weeks after the war started, and I sat with my students in their homes and cried with them, held their hands, tried to offer a mode of I don't know, comfort and solace. But I think that pulpit rabbis have found that people are seeking community, and whereas post a post, I don't know if we could call it post, but post-COVID, where a lot of people left shul, a lot of people left synagogue spaces and public spaces. First, I think because of health reasons, and then because they discovered that you could connect online, or, staying home, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper was wonderful, or connecting in smaller ways was wonderful. I see now that people are coming back to feel what other people are feeling, and to look to their leaders as authorities. In other words, when I think about times of tragedy and crisis, I think that people are looking to their leaders to be authorities, in the sense of giving them some sense of order, protection, and information, helping people know what they need to know. And so we try to be a resource, help people know where to donate, help people know what they can do. People often want to do. And so I think, part of the obligation of rabbis and leaders in a time of crisis is to give information. I think we also, people are looking for how to feel, right? They want to know things, they want to know how to feel. And so I think that we are often, obviously we never want to tell anybody how to feel, but I think people are seeking how to digest very difficult information. And so we try to offer a sense of how to feel. And then I think our job is also to offer hope, to offer a perspective that we're part of a long line of history, and this trajectory, while feels so new and unprecedented, right? How often have we used that word in the last several years? Everything does feel unprecedented. And I see as my job to try to align this crisis with the fact that we've been here for a long time, and we will continue to put one foot in front of the other and emerge, hopefully even stronger, as difficult as that feels when you're amidst a crisis.
Yeah. That's a lot to carry your community, right? You carry your own grief and your own feelings, and then to carry everyone with you. That's a huge responsibility and a burden. And I'm sure your community is incredibly grateful. It also feels like rabbis in this moment have this weight of being like an intellectual authority writ large, out in the world, and representing the entire Jewish community, to the secular world. I mean, is that a component of what you have been doing also over the last 6 months?
For sure. It's there's such a responsibility to be a proud Jew right now. I know you didn't ask directly about anti-Semitism, but I heard somebody say that the way to counter anti-Semitism is to be extra Semite. And I appreciate that, because I've been thinking a lot about the origins of anti-Semitism. I actually think that Purim coming up, the story of Mordechai and Esther, is actually the first explicit example of anti-Semitism, where Mordechai not bowing to Haman is used as an excuse to project hatred onto an entire group of people. To take something personal that happened and project it onto a whole group without much rhyme or reason. I think anti-Semitism tends to be irrational, and also tends to be out of fear of not understanding differences and understanding where we're coming from. And I think that I think what history has shown is that we could, assimilate entirely and agree to bow down to whatever we are bowing down to. But even if we did that, I think that we would continue to be elevated as different, or there would be another reason. If we didn't bow down, we would look wrong, or dress wrong, or sound wrong. And that irrational hate, I think, means that we have an extra responsibility to embrace with dignity and pride who we are, and to show the world what being Jewish is about. And I guess for me, I hope that it's not about superiority, God forbid, or oppression, God forbid, but really just with pride being a source and a resource of justice and really, to use maybe an overused word, but it is a lot about tikkun olam, an obligation to fix what's broken and to provide, I don't know, a foundation of connection to a past, to even our tradition and to what is found in the Tanakh and in the Bible and connection to God, and to make that connection to hopefully what will be a really strong future as well.
Yeah, we can only hope that if we continue to move through the world in that way, that people will begin to recognize it for sure.
Yeah, that's all we can do, right? I mean,
Right?
yeah, we
Yeah.
can't. I would love to go to bed and throw the covers over my head and not emerge, but we can't. We don't have the we just don't have the ability to do that. We have a responsibility to keep fighting and to keep moving forward.
100%. Let's talk about what you touched on briefly earlier. How does gender and the rise of female rabbis, how has that shaped the perception of the profession across the Jewish communal landscape and specifically in the Orthodox community?
So let's try to pick it apart and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's a lot of good. Um, just to say the obvious, every person is unique and has much to contribute and bring to any profession. And women as a group and as individuals obviously are 50% of the population and have so much to contribute to make a stronger Judaism. And so to think that for so many years, 50% of the population were not turned to be part of this exciting communal conversation is just devastating. I mean, to think about how much was lost and how much opportunity was overlooked, because women were held back and weren't given the education or weren't given the opportunities and weren't given a platform to be the leaders and the inspirations that they could be. Now, of course, at every point in history, individual women emerged as leaders and with deep ability. Often these women were propelled forward and lifted up by men who were able to have some tzimtzum, were able to step back in order to push other women forward. And actually, I've had the honor of traveling around and appearing with the first full rabbis in the other movements. So with Sally Prezant, who was ordained through the Reform movement in 1972, and with Amy Alberg, who was ordained in JTS, and Sandy Sasso in the Reconstructionist movement. And their stories and their trajectories are very similar to mine, actually. Each of them had a rabbi, a male mentor who elevated them. And of course, even before the 70s, let's not forget that Regina Jonas was the first female rabbi in Berlin, in Germany in the 30s. Unfortunately, so much of what she had to offer was lost because she perished in the Shoah and the Holocaust in the 40s and I think in 42. And so, and again, throughout history, there was amazing women who were able to build up a community of people who followed them and supported them in every movement. But I think that what I've seen in the other movements and am watching from my seat in the Orthodox community is that the shift from more female students have now entered the rabbinate. So in the Reform and Conservative movement, the admissions of rabbis who are entering these schools are now, 80-20. I don't actually have the math, so don't quote me on that, but are more and more women are entering the rabbinate. And yet the jobs that require a lot of authority and power are still going to men. And so there seems to still be like this inherent, I don't know, just the way that women are still seen as other or secondary, and also how the profession is more and more seen as a woman's job. And so salaries have declined a little bit. The prestige of the job has declined a little bit. And I don't know what to say about that. I think in the Orthodox community, the rabbinate is still obviously very male centric and very male heavy, and so we haven't experienced that as much. But I can tell you that changing hearts and minds on the ground and having community members, men and women, see these women as authorities and able to perform the same jobs and roles even within the confines of Jewish law, has been an uphill battle, and something that we continue to try to move the needle on. We're so proud of our success. I'll just say that the first glass ceiling that we were trying to shatter was trying to get Orthodox women in assistant positions in Orthodox synagogues, and at first that seemed like a ceiling that was too high and hard. But thanks to Zelda Stern and others, we were able to seed some of those positions initially, and had around 7 or 8, I think even 9 at some point, of women in assistant positions. And then the next highest and hardest ceiling was helping those women elevate to senior roles. And that's what we've really been focused on in the last few years, is trying to give women the support and also change hearts and minds on the ground to help community accept women as senior leaders. And now we've had, again, tremendous success. We have women who are co-leaders with male rabbis. We have several women who are senior leaders, either because they've built their own shul, like Dasi Fruchter, Rabbinit Dasi Fruchter in Philadelphia, or women who are about to take over existing shuls as senior leaders, like Rabbinit Leah Sarna, also in Philadelphia. So it's the job market is opening, but I think the genderedness and the discrimination that we still feel is there, and we're trying to confront it head on, trying to make sure that salaries are fair and equal, and that there is a sense of equity in these jobs. It's a big responsibility when you're expanding a field and trying to build a field. We want to do as much as we can to try to do it right and make sure that women have the opportunities to keep growing in their field.
100%. And would you say that the barriers for women in senior leadership positions and the pay equity gaps are the most significant challenges you face? Are there other challenges that you face within the Orthodox community as a female rabbi?
Absolutely. So, I said, when I told my story, I sort of just, briefly said, and then I was ordained and it was great. Just to go back to those early years, 2009, 2010, those were very difficult years. And while there was a tremendous amount of support, there was also a tremendous amount of pushback. I think that people are afraid of what's new and different, and this was not something that was done in the Orthodox community. And so there was a lot of fear about undermining Orthodox tradition, about whether I was truly Orthodox, if I had the credentials and the look, if I was good enough, smart enough, that all women, when they're breaking through into a new profession, have to deal with the fact that we have to be better, which is infuriating and just, I guess how it's always been. But I think that there was a lot of communal pressure and pushback. There was a day where I was sitting in my office and I got a phone call and somebody said, "You're destroying the Orthodox community," and hung up. And I was devastated. I didn't want to take that responsibility on. And I felt like I was doing something that was so filled with, I don't know, kedusha, with holiness, with godliness. I was serving a community and serving the Jewish people. I didn't feel like it was destructive. I felt like I was hoping to build something and to expand the walls of our synagogue spaces and our Beit Midrash to our, learning spaces, to make room for women and to make room for female voices. But what I learned is that we needed to be a grassroots organization and create change from the bottom up, as opposed to full change from the umbrella Orthodox community. And what I discovered is that we weren't going to overnight transform the entire Orthodox community in one fell swoop. And I think that's okay. In other words, looking back over the last 15 years, I really believe that the needle in the whole community has changed and moved a little bit, and that the opportunities that are available for women now are greater than they were 15 years ago. And maybe not every member of the Orthodox community is open to female Orthodox rabbis, but there's no question that people are turning more and more to Orthodox women as scholars, as leaders in their own milieu and contexts. And so, not everybody's going to do it with a degree of ordination or with a title of rabbi or rabbinit or rabbah, whatever the like title may be. But I think that's okay. I think that it's going to take time, and I have to remind myself that this movement of women as leaders is so new. I mean, women only got the vote. What was it? 100 years ago we just celebrated,
Right.
and so when you think about the trajectory of history, it actually hasn't been that long. And I try to think about that a lot when I feel impatient and angry, which I am and do a lot. I think there's a lot of space. There's a lot of need for anger and impatience, because that's how change happens. I'm not afraid to embrace that, but I also have to remind myself that sometimes we have to be a little patient and keep our eye on what we're trying to do and the change we're trying to make, in order to keep moving everybody along with us and moving forward.
It's a long game for sure. Tell us some of the spaces that your graduates are in. Are they leading congregations? I think you are. Or where are they working now?
They are most definitely leading Orthodox synagogues. We've also, interestingly, been getting calls from traditional conservative synagogues who are seeing our women as potential leaders. It's tricky because our women tend to be traditional and want to serve within Orthodox communities, but Rachel Cole-Feingold is serving in a traditional community in Chicago, and we're thrilled and excited to see where she takes that community as a senior rabbi. And I think that our students are not pigeonholed into being only synagogue rabbis. I like to think about a pulpit in an expanded way. One can stand on a pulpit and a stage and be a leader from many different stages. It doesn't have to be a synagogue bima or a synagogue pulpit. It could be a classroom. It could be a hospital room. It could be in an organizational role. I think that there's many ways that our students and our graduates are already making impact. So our students are going into the field of education, both formal and informal. So in schools as teachers and as administrators. I'm so proud of the work of Daniela Pressner, Rabba Daniela Pressner, who's working who is really building a school in Nashville called the Akiva School, and just hearing so many positive things about the work that she's doing there. And our students are moving towards chaplaincy a lot. It's a really, especially post-COVID and in times of trauma and crisis, it's such an important way to hold people and to give back by being present in the most difficult times of people's lives. We really want our students to have some facility and experience in chaplaincy, so they're supposed to work in a hospital setting or an end of life setting so that they can understand what it is and get some training in that kind of pastoral experience. And we find that many are so taken by it that they find their professional love there. Thinking about, Tamar Eisenstadt, who has had a long career as a lawyer and as an educator and as a philanthropist in all other milieus, and is now finding herself as a full-time chaplain in the Columbia healthcare system. And I mean, what she's giving back is just tremendous and amazing. And then we have women who are running organizations and are leaders and executives in the JCC world, as well as Federation, as well as the alphabet soup of our Jewish communal world.
Amazing.
And I
Amazing.
also just want to say that they're serving, some of them are serving in the Orthodox community, but more than half are serving in the Jewish community writ large.
Amazing. Now, you touched on this a little bit, but I just want to revisit it because obviously we've all seen the tremendous rise in anti-Semitism since October 7th. And I'm just wondering, yes, I hear you saying, my reaction is to be more of a Semite, but how is this anti-Semitism impacting your work? And beyond how you show up in the world, like what are some of the other things that you do in your position to address this issue?
So first, I'll just speak personally. It's a personal question for me. I have 4 boys, and I have twin boys who are studying in a gap year and are thinking about college. And so we had just gone through the whole application process. And I just want to say that if we were applying this year as opposed to what we're applying last year, I can't even imagine the kind of conversations and difficult decisions we would have made. My one chose to go to Yeshiva University, and so he's choosing that pathway of staying and remaining within sort of like a safe Jewish world. And the other one is going to Wash U, which I think has right now a good reputation for a growing and supportive Jewish community. But I am so worried about what I am seeing in the on college campuses and beyond. I know you said beyond showing up, but let me just talk about showing up for a minute. Not so long ago, some of you remember that in Scarsdale, I think it's called the Horseshoe Shopping Center. Maybe there was a graffiti, anti-Semitic graffiti that was sprayed over many of the storefronts there, the ice cream store, there's a few kosher stores and Jewish oriented stores there. And, the day-to-day grind of the work is so busy. So I was sitting in this meeting and that meeting and when something like this happens, you have to act fast and you have to think fast and you have to have the nimbleness and the flexibility to think about what to do. And so I sent out a message to my students and I said, I know this is last minute and you have other obligations, but at 3:00, we're joining this movement where there's been a call to ask people to show up at the ice cream store. And I have eight spaces in my minivan. Meet me outside at 3:30. And several students came and we jumped in the car and we went. And I think that is actually part of the job, is knowing when to just show up and to take a stand. And I think that's actually was an important message for my students to see that part of their job is, we call it spiritual activism here. It's a word that Rabbi Weiss has coined, and we try to teach it to our students that it's never convenient to change what you thought was going to be for the next few days and to get onto a plane or to, drive to Pittsburgh or to Houston, wherever the tragedy is. But I think it is actually part of rabbinic work. And I think that in terms of how the job has changed or the work is different now, it's to manage people's fear. There's a lot of fear that is both personal as well as real, because their kids are encountering it on campus, and parents are worried as they see their kids needing to not be kids, right? I mean, what a responsibility where now students can't just, I don't know, worry about their art history final or their, orgo tests. They have to also take a stand and worry about what they can put on their doors, right? I think Barnard now has sent out a message that you can't put anything on your door because it's inflammatory, because it may be inflammatory, and so you can't like put their response to some of the inflammatory writings that was on doors was to eliminate any like, I don't know, creativity that people could put on a door. And I was sad about that, because that was such a way for students to express who they are and to, put a whiteboard and say, meet me at the cafeteria. And you can't even do that anymore. And so I feel sad for these students who just can't be students anymore. And so I think some of it is holding people's fear, is giving a lot of information and education. We had the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale held I didn't organize it, so I don't want to take responsibility for it. I think, really grateful to those who did. I think, Rabbi Bracha Jaffe had a lot to do with that, with organizing it, but we held a panel exposing people to how students on campus are dealing with it, as well as Hillel professionals, how they're dealing with anti-Semitism. And it's a important conversation to expose people to. And I think part of it is also making sure they have the tools from AJC or wherever is relevant for them to be able to counter these conversations and to become experts as quickly as we can to knowing how to confront anti-Semitism. Just over the last few weeks, I've taught a few classes about anti-Semitism and trying to embed it in our historical and traditional view of, from Purim, but even before then, where did it start? What does it mean? What can we learn from the past in order to know how we can travel forward, knowing how to encounter this hate that's been around forever.
As I said before, being this pillar of strength for everyone when it's so challenging, and also being so reactive to whatever is thrown your way at any moment in time. I mean, it's got to be incredibly difficult. And, I think, as you said at the beginning, like being a rabbi, you are on all the time and you're holding everyone up all the time, and you have to offer hope in those moments that seem the darkest. Like, where do you draw your strength, and how do you take care of yourself to be able to do this?
It's such an important question. I mean, we talk so much about self-care or boundaries, and what does that mean? I can't say I've always been very good at it, but I do know that in order to sustain any hard job, I mean, all of us, every single one of us, need to know who our people are and where we draw strength from. So I'll just say that I rely deeply on my people. So my people are first and foremost my most inner circle of my immediate family. My parents have been so supportive of my journey from the beginning. My husband, who definitely did not sign up for this, but has been a tremendous resource. I think for me, what's helpful is knowing when to poke fun and to not take everything so seriously. I think he's taught me how to do that, and has been really helpful in bringing some levity to the hard. I love being a mom and being part of, and prioritizing, despite the fact that I have two jobs that both sometimes feel very full time. I spending time with my children brings a lot of joy, and knowing when to do that and when to sort of shut everything down is challenging. And then I think this is a very lonely profession, and I think one of the things that I'm proudest of is being able to create a community of like-minded people. And so being able to rely on now my colleagues who are graduates of Maharat, who have had similar experiences. We have WhatsApp groups, and we have we have a way of picking up a phone, and so just being able to not feel so lonely. And then I want to just underscore the importance of female friendships. I think just friendships are so important. And it took me a long time I used to look at other people and like be so jealous when people would like go away with their girlfriends for I don't know, a day or a weekend. And I always used to say, does that mean you have like a work obligation? Because I would only travel if I had a work obligation. And it's really only been in the last 2 years or so that I've started prioritizing and making time for time away with friends. And I find it incredibly nurturing.
Amazing. Right. I mean, our sisterhoods, for lack of a better word, there has to be a better word, are really important. And I think that really leads me to my last question, which is about the collective, which is in its own way, its own unique sisterhood, not, one that you were brought into by application as opposed to by choosing who you move through the world. But I'm curious about what it has offered you, how it has supported your leadership, and, a little bit about the relationships you've built there.
I like to think of myself as a cohort junkie because of the previous conversation. I just find that having support systems and like-minded people who are often dealing with similar issues, it's just helpful. And I think the Illuminate and has done a really great job of pulling a really diverse group of people who just, we care about each other because we know that the work is hard, and we want to elevate one another and support one another just inherently because the work is hard. And I think that what's special about the collective is they really are people who are doing very different work than I am. I'm just thinking about the array and myriad of wonderful organizations that we're running, from Jewish organizations to totally not Jewish organizations, but people who care about Jewish values, or don't even care so much about Jewish values, but are just dealing with similar issues. And so I think what I love is being able to find synergies and similarities. And I think that's what binds us together. And so you throw a group of smart women into a room, and we just I think gravitate to finding those synergies rather than finding points of differences. And to me, it's a bright spot in the work that's so hard.
I'm so glad. And I do think it distills down to, a few things about, inclusion and belonging. I remember there was an event last year where you were on a panel with Jody Bromberg, who runs an organization for interfaith families. And here you are running a yeshiva that is ordaining female rabbis. And one would think these two are on the same panel. And yet it was seamless because, right, you're both looking to create more inclusive Jewish communities. And so it's really beautiful. So I love that you find that with the other women in the collective. It has been such a joy to chat with you today. We could chat for hours more. I'm going to welcome back Rachel and just thank you for everything.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sara, for taking your time to share your wisdom and your incredible story with us. We're truly blessed to have you in our network. And thank you, as always, Rachel, for leading us through this incredible conversation. We hope that you will visit Maharat's website to learn more about Sara's ongoing work. We're also putting several links in the chat for specific ways to connect with Maharat, opportunities to learn, weekly Torah portions, and hope that you'll sign up for their newsletter to hear more updates. We also hope that you'll sign up for Illuminate's newsletter to hear about our upcoming programs and events such as this one. Here are just a few. We hope you'll join us next Thursday for a briefing by Israeli women on current events with Tamar Schwartz, CEO of Women's Spirit, as well as our next Crown Jewel conversation, which will take place on Thursday, April 4th, at 12 noon Eastern with Suji Min Miranda, Executive Director of Aleph, the Alliance for Jewish Renewal. We also hope that you will register now for Illuminate's annual luncheon taking place on Tuesday, May 7th in New York City. We will put the links for all of these events in the chat. We offer these sessions at no cost to you, but if you find value in what we're doing, please consider 2 donations today. The first one to Maharat to support Sara's incredible work, and the other to Illuminate. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you soon.